You're listening to Heroes in the Moment.
What's up, heroes? I'm Michael.
And I'm Nathan.
And today we're doing Andor episode 4.
Part 4.
But before
Episode
that,
4.
we get right into it. A little shout out to YouTube.
Thanks.
We're dipping our foot in the door of YouTube, so trying it out. This may or may never come out to YouTube. We're just testing, doing some recordings, and seeing how we can do with that. So once we get that up, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll mention it on social media and all that kind of stuff. But without further ado, let's get into the episode of Andor. Nathan, give me your first thoughts.
First thoughts. I know we talked about this earlier, but this episode, it was slower.
It was slow.
Right?
It was very slow.
But I do think it was very necessary to the plot. I mean,
it's got to have build up.
You've seen Andor's first, connections with these characters who probably end up being pretty big side characters throughout the show. So obviously they had to take time, and they kind of played on that tension, between the team and him the whole time, and it kind of explained the plan. So obviously, it was 48 minutes.
It was long of slow.
To be honest, like 48 minutes. That was the longest one we've had.
It was, and I didn't watch it until, unfortunately, I was super busy anyway. But I didn't get to watch it last night, and I found myself super dragging watching it. And I'm not one to get super tired watching a show if I'm really into it. And I was just starting to get really tired and not wanting to really watch it just because it was super slow and not really piquing my interest like it should have.
And I feel the same way. I watched it this morning when I woke up. Like, honestly, it's like, all right, I got 2 hours before I got to be here.
Right.
I watched it, and like you said, I don't have a huge desire to watch, from week to week. Obviously, I do like Star Wars, but obviously we're 4 episodes in, and the show is promising. So.
It is promising. Of course, the visual effects still are very,
dude.
very beautiful.
Cinematography,
especially with the planet. What was the planet called? And it was the name of the episode too.
I don't know. I feel bad.
It's a something.
The green mountains.
Anyway, it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful on
gorgeous,
location.
Man.
This just really shows that with any type of set or big show like this, you gotta have it on location.
Yeah, you gotta film on location.
You gotta film on location.
And any good director would tell you.
I don't want another Book of Boba Fett green screen.
That's the green screen. That's the green screen.
Right, and Power Rangers riding on Vespas.
Oh, dude, bro, do not start with that again.
Don't want that back. But, not to say that this episode, of course, again, was slow, but it had some cool, interesting points that did pique the interest. And one of those being is taking us back to Coruscant. This is the first time we've been to Coruscant since 2005.
Really?
Technically, you could say Obi-Wan Kenobi, but that was a past scene, so I don't necessarily count it.
Yeah.
So I can only count this, Peak Rocky upstairs. But so it was cool to go back to Coruscant and to see the Imperial relations now that this is the capital of the galaxy, which was established in
the And it looked gorgeous and beautiful as ever, dude.
It did.
But when the little title came up, Coruscant, dude, I got so hyped, man. I mean, that's my favorite Star Wars
I saw the planet,
world.
I was like, yes, Coruscant, we're back.
All right, how much are we going to be exploring of this world, in this show?
And of course, when we got to Coruscant, we were peeping into a new character, the Imperial girl. I forgot. I don't think they mentioned her name, did they? I don't think they mentioned her name. But they were. But anyway, they were.
They do.
Do they?
But I can't remember yet.
I actually kind of liked her character. If I'm being honest, I really genuinely was interested in her.
She was genuine.
Mm-hmm.
She was trying to, I don't know. I thought she was pretty interesting. Obviously, they painted her coworker.
I did not like him.
The one who's over 6 districts. I forget his name.
I forgot his name.
I'm terrible with names, and they're throwing in like 20 new ones every episode.
He was a jerk to her.
He was a jerk.
Absolutely jerk. Yeah.
She was trying to do her job. She had jurisdictional access. And still, he was like, you know what?
No,
screw
you're new. I don't like you. You suck. But
bro, what, middle school?
Yeah, no, exactly. But
I liked her though.
I did like her. I thought she was intriguing, and the white uniforms definitely reminded me, of course, Grand Admiral Thrawn. And I feel like this would be a perfect show for. Of course, we know we're going to get him in the Ahsoka series, but I feel like this would be a good show for him as well in live action. Because the white suits, we know he's over them. Because, he wears a white suit, so it's, connected, right?
They all got to wear white suits.
Right, so I'm just assuming, would it make sense for him to, show up as, a superior and be like, because he's so smart, he's such a good manipulator, he's such, an analyst.
Yeah.
So, of course, to see him go up against the early beginnings of the Rebels would be super cool in the show.
And I definitely think they would honestly follow that storyline maybe seasons down. I definitely don't think he'd make a cameo in season 1.
Well, I feel like it'd make more sense because if you go with the Rebels timeline, of course, he didn't show up until season, or maybe late season 2, early season 3. And of course, Rebels is 15 years after Revenge of the Sith, 5 years before Rogue One, same time as Andor. So I think it'd make more sense for him to show up earlier rather than later, because later he's dealing with the rebels of Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that would.
But maybe you could do both,
but also hurt the show if you're throwing in a villain that big. Like I feel like they have to really develop the tension and the characters.
Yeah,
The good guy versus bad guys for the first season before throwing in.
Yeah, I get that, but at the same time,
character.
I feel like the show needs something to pull in more interest because, like I said with the last episode, this show's not being talked about at all.
I know. I haven't checked the ratings, but
the ratings are good when it comes to like IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes. They're good.
What's the viewership like? It's definitely under 1 million.
It is, but it's just unfortunate because literally I see nobody talking on Instagram. I see nobody talking about it on TikTok. I see nobody talking about it on YouTube anymore, except for aside from a couple of the first episode. But I've literally seen nothing about it outside of us, so we're covering it.
I know. Shout out to
Here's
us in the moment. But
that's surprising to me.
I think that's a good sign because most of the time you just see clickbait stuff, really just generic. I mean, I still see people covering She-Hulk. Why? I don't know. But the fact that this is just flying under the radar, I think, it appeals to me more. Like I naturally hate what everyone loves. Everyone's like, "Ooh, Stranger Things." I like Stranger Things, but the more people talk about it, the less I want to see it. So
that's super odd.
Yeah, well, it's weird, right? But the fact that people aren't giving this, the respect that it deserves, it like makes me appreciate it more. Really? Also, we know that there's not a huge Star Wars character. It doesn't have that pull.
Right.
Like
I just think it's
Grogu.
hurting it more than it's benefiting it. I mean, you may like it to that sense, which is completely fine, and I'm enjoying it so far too. But it's hurting the show, and I feel like Star Wars is like getting a little antsy about it to where it could lead to a possible cancellation of a season 2 and beyond.
Well, to be honest, if you go to that point though, from the other side, like then Star Wars just relies on their legacy characters to save everything. Obviously, Mando did really well. Like they had an attractive quality in Grogu. With this, they don't have that yet, and it's not like they can throw in Luke Skywalker or Ahsoka. They have to be able to create new and interesting characters for people to pay attention now.
Which is true, but then again, that can be argued because the Acolyte is super talked about, and that's going to be about nobody we've known before, and it's already been super talked about.
I think that's due to its time period mostly, which I'm really excited for, to be honest.
Right. But in the sense of a show about Andor and about the political nature of what's going on in Star Wars, it's interesting, but it's not piquing the interest of what we want.
And I will say, like this, the dialogue in this episode, the themes are just very adultish, like very government-centered. And that's why I love, like, a lot of the other stuff that we've seen is just very cookie-cutter, but I think this is also why it's not getting a lot of attention, because, like, this is built for adults.
Right.
I had to rewind a couple times to understand like what they're talking about, to be honest.
I do like that aspect, and I think that's great. And being more darker to comparatively to the mainstream audiences of Star Wars is fantastic. And I do enjoy that period. I agree with that 100%. All right, so now we got to talk about, of course, Andor is dropped off by Luthen on this planet to work with the rebel group in order to what's their goal, to break into like a dam?
They're breaking into the dam where all the Empire is like storing their payroll, the quarterly payroll, all their supplies, and as we see throughout the episode, the rebels, they need funding, obviously.
Correct.
So I mean, dude, it's a ballsy plan. They got seven dudes. They plan on breaking in, taking their money, and flying out in their freighter shit. That's not even fast.
That's hard. And of course, they're like, it's a suicide mission later when they're talking.
It is,
but. Yeah, so that's interesting. Of course, there's no trust with Andor at this point in time. He's like a mercenary, which is not even that.
Which is cool. That's why Luthen's like, well, that's a good thing. He's getting paid for this.
Right, exactly. So
you can trust him.
Yeah, but okay, so of course he works with the girl, and she's like the leader of the rebel.
What's her name? It started with an L or something.
I forgot her name, to be honest. Again, I watched this super late, so I was tired.
I forget. Sorry.
I forgot her name.
We're not being insensitive. I just have a bad memory.
That's fair.
Truly.
All right, so of course they meet up with their contacts, of course, in the woods, and there's a mole working for the Empire working with them, and they're all super like dissing Andor. They're like, why is he here? What's he doing? And they're
Who is this bozo?
Like, I'm right here.
Bro, I'm sitting right here.
I'm standing here, man. I'm trying to help the cause.
I know, and that's where like the whole tension from the episode comes from. At least on this end, it's like his teammates 3 days out from their, probably definitely a mission, do not trust their pilot. Like, I mean, obviously, if I was in their position, I'd be doing the same thing.
I would be,
They've
very
been preparing
for
5 months, like they say, and 3 days before, they're
this
paying
rando
a dude $200K to join their team. They have no idea.
That would be a little bit like, are you good at what you do?
Exactly. Like, are you gonna have my back? Is what I'd be thinking.
Yeah, that's very true. I agree with that. All right. So, of course, they're planning that and they're having that build up. And really, that's all that happened on his side.
Yeah.
They're just having that super controversy, wanting that trust and to get this cause done. But then, of course, I think because I think that was the main plot of this episode. And I think the side plot of this episode was definitely more interesting.
Yeah. And I thought it was a little better, to be honest.
It was.
I will say. With Mon Mothma with Luthen.
With Luthen. Because, of course, again, it benefits from Mon Mothma being a mainstream Star Wars character.
Yeah.
Of course, one of the beginnings of the Rebel Alliance, the big senator who's, started it. Of course, the other senators don't like her because of that fact. She's being super secretive like that. And of course, Luthen, who we found out some more information about him and his character that I had no idea about. It was fascinating.
He's a baller.
He is a baller.
He's just he cleans up.
He cleans all up. He gets all his jewelry.
He's looking dripped out.
He's drippy.
He got ice.
he got ice. He got the wig. He looking fresh.
He had a wig, right?
Yeah, he did. And he, of course, goes up and he owns a shop on Coruscant that reminds me of the Collector. It has like several collective things and stuff. And he's like, Mon Mothma, and he completely different character when he's acting like this. Like, he legit, and he looked different too. He reminded me of somebody I'm trying to think of, but
you already said the Collector, right?
Right, the Collector, but somebody else who's like, I guess the Collector is the biggest one. It reminded me a lot of that. Yeah. But it was super cool. He's like, I have some perfect thing for you right around back.
Yeah. I mean, from what we know, it's an antique shop, right? He has his own store where he sells I don't know, stuff. But she comes in, obviously, she doesn't trust her pilot. I don't think, he trusts his assistant either. Go to the back and have a little convo.
Whispering about like the rebels and like what their cause is. It's just really cool.
We need money. And he's like, help me out here.
Help me out. Give me some benefits. Yeah. That was super great and interesting. It shows more about the corruptness of Star Wars and how, you have to hide under these motifs during the Empire's reign to do certain things, especially, of course, like Jedi. Of course, can't be Jedi at this time. Yeah. So, of course, we explored earlier this year, but that was super cool to me. It made me like, of course, Luthen is a super cool character.
Yeah, dude, he's just able to switch on and off like that. Go from shooting dudes,
talented actor,
in a barn, to now he's
shout out Eric Selvig. I forget his real life actor name.
What is his name?
I really can't remember.
He's just amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed his character.
Yeah. But the part I like best about that though is when she's explaining like, look, they're taking over. I know they're suspicious of me now. They're replacing everybody. Like she has a new pilot, a new security team. She's like, I can't trust anybody.
And which is true, which is completely true. Because they don't trust her. So that's cool.
Yeah.
In of itself. And at first, when Luthen was getting all dripped out, I thought he was like a senator. I was like, whoa,
me too. I was
is he gonna be a senator? That's dope. But of course, he's just this super cool shop owner.
Yeah.
Which was super cool in that episode. But yeah, I mean, that's honestly, I can't remember. Do you remember anything else that really happened that was grabby?
They just had those three plots, right? The Andor plot, the whole Luthen plot, and then they had the
Imperial girl
plot, which I definitely think she'll turn good.
You think so? Or do you think she'll turn worse and become like villainous? Super villainous.
Actually, I think that's more likely because what's his name? The other dude.
The guy who goes to Coruscant to visit his mom. I forgot about that.
His mom just slaps him in the face.
I wouldn't have took that.
He like opens the door. She looks at him. She slaps him and then crosses him. And then I was like,
I wouldn't have took that.
Dude, I'm not saying slap back, but I'm just saying like you got it.
I would be like, what the heck?
Mom, why are you slapping me?
Why are you hitting me?
But like,
boy.
I think that from here on out, we're gonna see a different character because he's
gonna be good.
Rock bottom.
He's gonna be good.
He's going back to his freaking mom. Like, dude, he's not
because he got like completely dissed off the Force, right? Like we predicted,
totally.
Not from his boss, but from the Empire took over their Blue Force, which was expected, which was also super cool. And of course, he's not being replaced, but the Empire's just taking over.
So basically, either he's not going back. I don't think so. Either he's joining the Empire,
which I think is likely.
He's gonna go on a journey of self-discovery and end up joining Andor's crew.
Ooh,
or become She-Hulk. I think
it's more likely is because we know from the trailers and we know from his story that Andor, of course, like I said in my last podcast, and I think this episode made it more possibly likely that they both end up in the Imperial Academy together as officers. I think that's possible.
Then they gotta work together.
And then they gotta work together to benefit themselves.
Yeah.
In this sense, and of course, one may go towards the path of the Empire, one may go towards the path of rebellion, or they may towards the path of rebellion.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But I think that's an interesting plot, though. I genuinely am intrigued by that. So I don't know. In the future episodes, I think I think next episode will be picking up a lot more. Yeah. I think they're going to enact this plan. They're going to, start up with that.
Yeah, I think next episode will be like the whole, action scene.
Right. So I'm excited for that. Of course, this episode was slow, but I think it's going to pick up.
Yeah, and we had to have it, obviously. How many more episodes do we have?
There's 12 total. So
12 total.
Yeah,
so
we're
7 more episodes. The way done.
Yeah, 7 more episodes.
I did like the first 3 episodes. To be honest.
did. So I'm excited for more.
Facts.
Yeah.
All right, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know by giving us a review and a download. Our podcast, Here's in the Moment, is available on all podcast platforms.
All of them.
Check us out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
We'd appreciate that.
If you want to stay updated with all our updates, our new episodes, vote on some polls or whatever, check us out at Here's in the Moment on Instagram.
Yes.
For some more content, check us out on Here's in the Moment with the extra T on TikTok.
Extra T.
Our upcoming episodes, as far as they go, we got She-Hulk Episode 7 breakdown.
Episode 7.
Coming out this Tuesday,
yep.
5 a.m. Check it out. It's an interesting one.
It is an interesting one, to say the least, for sure.
The whole series breakdown has been very interesting, especially Episode 6. That one was funny. Check that one out, too. But like I said, Tuesday, 5 a.m.
Tuesday. And, of course, like and subscribe if you're on the YouTube. And we just want to thank y'all for listening. And as always, we love you 3000.